button now. Oh, okay. We're live. And we're back with another Talk Like That podcast. Welcome back. My name is Mark Dallas, and I am a dialect coach and the host of Talk Like That. Today, we are very lucky to have with us a wonderfully talented person. Heidi is a casting director, an actress known for Bordello, Take the Lead, and Dead Ringers, among many other notable appearances in film and TV. She's also an award winning novelist, her most recent book being the highly acclaimed Two White Queens and The One Eyed Jack, which has received accolades from Jeremy Irons and none other than John Irving. I'm delighted to welcome Heidi von Palleske. Heidi, thank you so much for coming on to Talk Like That.
Thank you for having me here.
It's great to finally get to meet you sort of face to face,
Yes,
but virtually.
real. Yeah. This is the new reality here, isn't it?
It is for now. That's
Mhm.
for sure. It is our new reality that, of course, we've all been experiencing for the past, was it been a year now?
Yeah. I mean, I shot Bordello. I was in Cuba until March the 10th. I flew back March the 10th, and then we were locked down on the 13th. So I mean, I got one film in right before we went into that lockdown. And so when we were in Cuba, we had no idea really what was going on in the world because Cuba was a really safe place at that time.
Right.
Yeah.
Whereabouts in Cuba were you?
We were in Havana, right? And we were shooting around Havana, but we got to stay in Havana, and it's my first time, and great city.
Isn't it amazing?
Oh, I love it, and there's music everywhere, right?
Everywhere, every street corner.
Yeah, and it's all great music. It's all
Yeah.
great, So
Well, they grow up like as from children, like
Mhm.
learning how to play instruments. Either you sing or
And
you play instruments or you dance or all of those, and
all of it. Yeah,
it shows. Like it's another world.
yeah, it is, and it's a fantastic world. And so we shot there, and then we came back, and the world had changed.
Wow. So you just flown back from Havana
Yeah.
and into
Turned on the news, and and I think that I think the day I flew back, I think that we heard that Justin Trudeau's wife Sophie was sick with COVID, and then all the changes happened. So it was really and then I was very careful because because I flew, I thought I better just quarantine myself. So,
right. So you did the 14-day thing.
mhm.
Wow. So Heidi, I wouldn't normally comment on a guest's appearance,
Well,
but but
that's
but you've obviously been blessed with the kind of cheekbones that so many would kill for. And I understand, a little bird tells me that your face was used um, as a model for a line of mannequins sculpted by the late designer Robert Filoso.
Yeah, he was, and he was a very, very, very talented sculptor. He really was, and I have a big fascination with sculpture. Anyways, he met me at a party in Los Angeles and asked me if I would pose for him, and I did. It was very strange because he was only doing my head, and it was on a platter, so it felt very, John the Baptist. Because I really looked. It really, when he was making it, really looked like me, and I
I've
looked
got
like
the right one here. This one on the screen, that is it, right?
yeah, that's it. Yeah,
Yeah.
but that's with all the makeup and everything. When it was just in the clay, it was remarkable. It really was. And we went to a launch for the mannequins in New York, and and there were tons of people going through and seeing all these. Who knew that the mannequin world was what it was? And I was just standing there beside the mannequins, but I was sort of just gazing off, lost in my own thoughts. And I suddenly, turned, and someone was looking at the mannequins. They didn't realize that I wasn't one of them, and you just, it's just, thought that a mannequin had come to life. So yeah.
Well, the thing is about mannequins is that they're kind of creepy, right? But
Yeah. Mhm.
but I mean, this shot here, it looks so real.
No, yeah, the whole like into here is, yeah, absolutely. And no, and he was known. He was very high end mannequins. I mean, he sold them for a lot of money, and so the mannequins were in places like Saks and like in high end places. and so people would wait for his unveilings of mannequins. So and so I was introduced to a whole world I knew nothing about, and it was very, very, very
That just sounds bizarre. Like
pretty well there because that was a long time ago. That was 1988, right after I did Dead Ringers. Yeah, so so then I felt like I had my own evil twin, right? I had my mannequin twin. Yeah, so
wow. I'm just trying to imagine the scene that you turn up to this show like an unveiling. Like not an unveiling of a new car or
yeah.
a new hotel, but of a mannequin.
Yeah,
So
well, in this weird way, it was kind of
surreal.
like somewhere between an unveiling a piece of art because he was a sculptor, and the unveiling of a new car or of a product. So it really fits somewhere in between product and art, and in a sense, that's probably the only way that he could make a living as a sculptor. And it isn't until now that I'm thinking about it. Because my first book was They Don't Run Red Trains Anymore, and it was about a sculptor. So I've had a fascination with sculpture, and in my book, she can't find any work. She doesn't make mannequins though. She because she works in stone, she carves headstones. She makes memorials as her way of making money. So I think that we often see in the arts people having to do other jobs, but they're somehow related. So him sculpting mannequins was a way for him to practice as a sculptor who worked in clay, and make a really good living.
Right. And talking about people doing lots of different jobs that are kind of related, there's quite a few that you've done yourself. I mean, like I mentioned in the intro.
One thing is that I only cast one thing once, and that was for a friend of mine, and Revenge of the Radioactive Reporter. And so that was the only time I cast something, and that was a good enough experience to make me realize I never really wanted to cast.
Right. So what you need to do is go to your imdb.com page and remove the cast directory.
I've tried. For instance, I am not born in October. I am not a Libra. I am a Scorpio, and I'm Scorpio through and through. You never see me in anything but black.
Right.
And I've told them I don't know how many times that no, I am not born October the 9th. I'm born November the 9th. They will not fix it. And then I did a quiz. They have quizzes on IMDb, right? They have so I did a how well do you know Heidi von Palleske quiz. And I think I maybe got 60%.
60%.
I didn't ace it. I didn't people know more about me than I know about myself, right? Because I didn't.
See, this is the thing. Maybe Heidi, maybe you got your birthday wrong and they have it right.
No, I'm no Libra. I love Libras, but I'm no Libra. I'm not balanced. I take revenge sometimes when it has to be done, but I'm forgiving afterwards. I am Scorpio through. I have 5 planets in Scorpio. I'm Scorpio through and through. There's nothing.
You look like a Scorpio to me, anyway.
Exactly right. You see my stinging tail. It's it's sharp.
Yeah, exactly. It's waiting to pounce, waiting to. Right. Do tails pounce? I don't know. They strike, don't they?
They strike.
They strike.
Pounce. Yeah. What are you, a Leo?
Me, almost. Really? I'm actually. I mean, I know I do. I kind of have that Leonesque sort of look.
Well, you said pounds, right? So
pound, exactly. But I'm actually a Virgo. So I was born right. I'm like near the cusp. I'm like 28th of August. So I'm kind of.
Oh, so but you're right in Virgo. Yeah. So. Yeah, I'm talking like I know, like I'm some sort of astrologer, like I know, but I know how it affects me. That's.
Yeah, I mean, do you not like? Do you look in the magazines? Are you one of those people that looks at your horoscope?
Oh, I don't have to because it all gets sent to my inbox every morning, so
right.
I don't have to go looking at it. Comes to me, so and then I just choose the best one. So there's about 6 that come to me. And
the one you like the best.
Sometimes I just run my finger down and go, "This is the one that's going to matter." So,
that's the one with the best news. That's the one I'm going to go with.
That's what I'm going to go for. Who needs bad news? No, but there are 2 apps you can have, and one of them is called CoStar, and it does it. They predict your day based right on the minute of your birth. Mm-hmm. So, that's better than just looking up Scorpio. Although when I look up Scorpio, because I have so much in Scorpio, it usually is true.
Well, if I still followed astrology, I mean, I kind of dropped like way back, years and years and years ago, back when I was like 20 or something, I studied astrology and I was fascinated with it. But these days, I'm very much more of a skeptic. But if I still believed in that stuff, then I would say that you probably have a very interesting star chart, because the amount of things that you've done, like when I did the research on you, is like, what? She did what? So it's like she's been sculpted as a mannequin.
There's mannequins.
She's
I mean, some people have their own action dolls and they're only this big, but my action doll is 6 foot tall.
yeah, exactly. Does it have movable parts though? I guess if it's a mannequin, it would do.
Yeah, and that like back then they sold them for $5,000 a mannequin, right? But that was without hair. So,
Wow.
you know,
You had to get your own hair. That was like
I
an
did have
animal
something creepy
accessory.
happen with mannequins. I really did. I had something very, very creepy happen. I had someone who called my agent and wanted me to do a public service announcement for Thursday's Child. And so she just thought, you may as well just call Heidi directly because she's going to do this free public service. And but then he told me that he had bought 5 of the mannequins and he had them all around him in his bedroom. So
what?
A little creepy there. 5 of them.
That's a little bit creepy.
I would say, did you buy them without hair? Because if it's without hair, that's $25,000 US you just spent on 5 of me. So yeah, so that was a bit strange. That could be a movie, really.
Either that, you should make that into a movie, or at least write a novel about that. Creepy character.
Rip one off, yeah.
That's right. And an actress somehow finds herself in that room with all the mannequins around.
Yeah.
It's kind of like a shrine.
They'd have to do a little photo stuff to make me look as young as the mannequins now. So that was some time ago, right? So I'm holding on by my fingertips. So yeah.
Well, you have a lot of experience in many things, and one of the things that I wanted to mention was that you are also an activist, and I understand that you were a key player in banning the exportation of asbestos to third world countries. Tell me about that.
Yeah, so that's not a quick conversation, but basically my dad worked in an asbestos factory, and he worked there for quite a long time, and he wore his overalls home, so we all breathed it in.
Oh.
So he outlived most people he worked with by quite a few years because he lived a very, very healthy, organic life, and he never smoked. So anyone who works in the factory and smoked, they died first. And we all kind of knew that my dad would probably go the route of of death through asbestos and asbestos related cancers. But then 4 years later, my mother got sick, and it's called para-occupational exposure. And so, whereas when you're breathing it in, you're working with it, you can get sick and die pretty quickly. There's a 30-year latency period, 30 to 50 year. So, and my daughter was 10 at the time when my mom got sick, and she said to me, "Well, if Grandma Dodie breathed it in at home, what about you, Mom?" Right? So she was the only person who said that, and and she spoke the words that, of course, were a great fear. So it started with me going to CBC Radio, and I actually did my my lung CAT scan on air. And at the time, the Prime Minister was trying to convince the world that asbestos was a safe substance, and at the same time as my mom was dying. And so my sister said to me, you just need to make people aware somehow. How can we do that? And I thought, well, that's the one thing I can do. I can't save my mom. She's going to die. She's got mesothelioma, and there's no cure. There's nothing that will take away her pain. And there's nothing. There's no treatment at all. But I can open my mouth. So I did, and I fought for a few years. I addressed Parliament. I wrote for every major newspaper. I was on the radio a lot, and I spearheaded 2 documentaries and 1 radio documentary. And then the strangest thing happened when we won. We eventually won. We did. I thought I would feel victorious, and I didn't, because I found that I had taken all of the pain I felt for losing my parents, and focused it in like a laser sharp anger that could accomplish something. And then suddenly, when there wasn't a fight anymore, all the grief just poured into my heart. But my lungs are clear. They're fine. They didn't find any sign of asbestos whatsoever. And so I'm really, really fortunate. And I know other families where all of the children have gotten sick. So,
Wow.
yeah.
Yeah, that's quite a story.
Yeah.
Extremely sad, but I mean, great that you could be a voice for, other people that are victims of that.
Yeah, and the funny thing is that there was a woman who's become a really close friend of mine in Nova Scotia, and she, like me, has a German father, and she had just lost her father at the time that I was sick, and the time that I was on the radio, and she heard me, and she thought, "Who is this woman?" And she thought, "No, I just can't deal with this. My dad has just died." And then she went away, and she came back, and then I was back on the radio again, and she was running in the exact same spot she'd been running in, and she heard me again. And she stepped up to the plate, and she was, she's a doctor of environmental studies, so she was key. And then, I mean, basically, there's 7 women who all had stories to do with, losing of someone because of asbestos. And we all just kept telling our stories over and over again, just kept repeating our stories until people listened, and they did, they really did.
Wow. Yeah, it's amazing that it took so long to find out, or the truth about asbestos to come out. I'm not going to dwell too much on asbestos now because
No,
we're
we did a whole
here
show.
to talk about you. I mean, this is a part of you, or rather, I'm glad to say, asbestos is not a part of you.
Not part of me. Although there are some members of parliament who have nicknamed me asbestos Heidi. So.
Well, you mentioned that you were on the radio, and I understand that you used to have a show. You used to have a late night talk radio show on AM 640 Toronto.
Yes, and I cut my radio chops with none other than Rainer Schwartz. So I mean, if you are an old Toronto person, you would know.
I've only been here since 2002, so that kind of flows over the.
Rainer had a little night music on TVO. He was a voice of Chum FM and CFNY. He was Mr. Radio. He had a voice that was just down here. It was like so. So the fact that I got to learn radio with someone who had 20 years of extraordinary experience. I was very, very fortunate, because I got to share a microphone with the best, and he was great talent. Yeah, so that was fun. And again, that was, in a sense, that was also storytelling, because I would do a monologue to start, and then people would call in, and I'll tell you something. I don't know. I mean, if you've experienced this yet or not, but I never believed that the full moon really had any effect on people, the way it is mythologically in horror movies and so on. But when we had a live talk show on the nights when there was a full moon, it was crazy. Yeah, it was absolutely crazy. All of the nutters phoned in.
Let me guess, you start to get more colorful people signing in, right?
Mm-hmm.
On a full moon?
Mm-hmm.
You know what? It is actually... It's documented that you'll find that ERs, emergency rooms, we call them something else in Britain, casualty, we call it.
Yeah.
Those fill up on full moons. Like they actually have more people coming in because people do kind of crazier things.
Right? I know. So I would get real. The only time, because on live radio you have a 7 second
delay, right?
Delay, yeah. And I delayed there. We have second. Delay.
7 second.
What's that word? Yes.
Delay.
Delay. So you have 7 second delay, and I only used it once, and it was on a full moon. Yeah. And it's because someone was calling me the C word, and I thought, I don't know if we can use the C word on the radio. So that was the only time I pushed the button.
So you pushed the button on the C word.
I did, yeah. Yeah.
Just to let you know, if you want to use the C word on this one, you can. That's no problem.
Complacency is such an awful word. Complacency and contentment, those C words are just compromised. Collaborate.
Complacency is an ugly one.
Those C words are really hard ones for me.
Yeah.
Yeah. So no, he was kind of abusive, and that was the only time ever, and I did it for 3 years. And it was great because it was really late night, so I didn't get in the way of acting. So I could go in and I'd get off the air at about 1 o'clock in the morning and go home. So I could still get up and do an audition, or I could still work. So I could juggle everything. So it really was the world's best part-time job.
Awesome. Like, I just want to mention that for the people who are watching, if you sign in to YouTube, you can actually write comments and put questions down there. And if I see a good one, then I'll bring it up on the screen and I'll ask.
We'll push the button and there'll be a 7-second delay.
Yeah. Well, I don't need to have a 7-second delay because I can just see what comes up and then choose to put it up or not.
Modern world, right?
Yeah. The thing is, though, Heidi, if you come out with the C word, I can't do anything about it. I just have to. That's why anything goes.
Girl who's a real rebel. You're saying that. You're putting that. You're dangling that for me.
Hey, come on, like I use much worse language on this show. It's like anything goes, I tell you. But I want to play a clip from something that you are in. So let me see. I mean, obviously, all my transitions on here, because I'm such a professional, are absolutely seamless. As you watch this back, you'll see that it's all over the place. But yeah, let's go. So share. I'm going to share the screen that has a clip of you in it. I managed to track you down. And I just want to play this because this will be an absolutely seamless segue into my next question. Here we go.
Miss Wheeler, did you meet with the competition last week?
Your Honor, my past cases have no relevance here.
No, but your answers to my questions do. Did you meet with them?
Yes, but
you came into my chambers ready to lie and cheat and God knows what else. So you are going to dissolve that trust. You're going to pay her client the money you owe them. And I don't ever want to see you in my chambers on this case again.
Yeah, so there we go. I'll just stop it there. So that was a clip of you in Suits.
And I've never seen that clip.
All right, there you go.
And you know, never give you nothing. I auditioned for that, and the lines were somewhat different. And by the time I got there, they made the lines a little bit, harsher and a little bit, nastier, really. So I don't know what inspired that.
It was kind of, yeah. You were very serious and
I was very serious. Yeah, no. I was very, very serious. And when we did the first run through, Catherine Hagel, is that how you say her name?
I have no idea. You're asking me.
Kathy said. Catherine said, everyone's being so mean to me today. Right?
It's called acting, Kathy.
Yeah. So a few people saw it and told me that I was kind of harsh on that. But I didn't know till now. Yeah. So.
Well, now you know. Just tone it down next time.
You see, if you had something from Bordello, you would have had me shooting, swearing, smoking, and knitting.
Oh man, I should have spent more time doing the research.
It was a bit of a challenge, the knitting. I had to work on that for a couple of weeks beforehand to get it quite right.
What, the swearing bit or
the knitting? The shooting was fine. The shooting was great. It was
yeah.
Fine, yeah.
Well, you were shooting, wasn't it? Like a rifle that you were?
Yeah. And so we would do like 3 takes and shoot 3 times. They swapped them out, so they would like give me another one, so I could just continue shooting. And so really, I think I only pulled the trigger 9 times in total. And that night, my shoulder, I could feel it, because it had
because of the.
We were shooting blanks. We really were shooting. So there's a kick. There's a real kick to it. Yeah. Yeah.
Did you have to like train to fire it, or I guess you weren't really shooting to hit anything?
No, I was shooting to not hit anything.
Okay.
No, but I mean, I shot a little bit when I was a kid.
Well, you grew up on a farm, right? So
I grew up on a farm. So yeah. And so that was just, things that you did, for fun.
You have to shoot people that stray onto your land.
Anti-gun, completely, right? I mean, I'm talking about like little air rifles and things, right? So, but
you didn't shoot anybody that strayed onto your land and say, "Get off my land," and then just.
Not anybody who can tell you about it.
That's true.
I never shot a human. Never, not even accidentally. No.
Well, that's
And
good. That's good to
you know,
know.
but I've had to shoot a lot in film, right? I mean, I've had a, you know, I've played a lot of characters who have had guns for one reason or another, you know. So action stuff, you know. So yeah, so you know, so and there's
Because they know you're kick-ass. So there's like
I'm kick-ass, right? Yeah.
they
So
want to get you in and say we've got this role that requires you to fire a firearm. Fire a
they,
firearm.
you know, they when they say, "Oh, look, there's a woman needed to shoot a firearm," they almost always go get the redhead.
Yeah, exactly. Get Heidi in.
Just
She
get the
can
redhead. Just
do
get the
you
redhead.
proud.
Yeah. So
And
so yeah. So I've had a lot of gunplay in, you know, in film. Interestingly. Yeah.
oh, you know what?
My nephew who's like, he's growing up now. When he was young, he said to me, "Let me get this right, Auntie Heidi. Your job is either to get killed or to kill, right? That's what you do, because that's what he took away from, you know, the films that he was allowed to see, because he wasn't allowed when he was little to see Dead Ringers. So you know, so he saw a lot of TV stuff where, you know, you're either a cop and you're shooting someone, or you're, you know, the bad guy getting shot. So yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And one of your fans, stroke friends, I don't know, Daniel Dorr.
Oh yeah.
He says Heidi was the lead in one of my films. Well, it was one of his. Obviously, he was the director, producer,
Well, he
and
got the producer on a bunch more. So yeah.
and she shot herself and saved the world as she often does for her friends, which is nice.
I didn't shoot myself. Someone shot me.
Somebody, or she was shot.
Someone shot me in the foot.
What does it say? She was shot. Maybe there's a missing
Yeah.
T.
I was shot. I was shot and I was limping. And then I
Ah.
had a great moment where I kicked the guy in the face and disarm him. I shoot him, and then I shoot the other guy. Boom, boom, boom. And the one guy, he says to me, "Oh, Marilyn, you would not shoot me." He doesn't even finish the sentence. Boom. Got him.
Blow away the smoke. Awesome.
Yeah, that was actually, yeah, you know what? Dad cast me in a really heroic role, and I was really happy about that because I had played a lot of villains, and the character of Marilyn in that show really saved the day. So that was nice. It was nice to play. It was nice to play hero. In fact, you know, yeah, I played a lot of bad guys, and working with Dan and his partner Phil Jackson, I got to do a lot of heroes, and that was nice. And people always said to me, "Oh, it's more fun playing bad guys," and because I had done so many bad guys, it was way more fun being a hero.
Ah. I played the last role I played on the stage was a bad guy, and that was a lot. That was a lot of fun.
Yeah, but did you do a whole bunch of bad guys up until then?
Not really, no.
Yeah,
Not a whole bunch, no.
I told I met John Candy. Well, I met him a couple of times. I met this one time with my friend Tarpon Gotch. They had a production company in LA called Frostback Productions, and so he asked me, you know, what kind of roles I did mostly, and I said, well, I mostly do lesbian Russian spies, and he said, "You're the one getting all those roles because I'd be trying for them."
I never get given lesbian roles, but
You don't. You don't. See,
I'm trying.
I get lesbian, only if they're Russian spies. It has to be all of those things. They have to be bad, and they have to be lesbian, and they have to be Russian. Then
Talk about typecasting. That's so specific.
yes, but when that comes, it's mine.
No one can. I can just imagine like the casting room, like the waiting room to go into casting, and it's like full of all these women with red hair.
That's right. Yeah,
Looking bad, looking mean.
That's right. Yeah,
and looking lesbian, whatever that means.
Do that when you're a redhead, you do get cast a little bit differently, you know, because people assume there's either something wacky or highly sexualized, or you know, you're very often the other woman. You know, you're almost never as a redhead, you know, like the nice wife.
Well, that's stereotype, isn't it? I mean, the thing is about casting is that it's so in many cases it's so stereotype. So the redhead is like the one with the short temper, you know, she's fiery, or either that or she's Irish or Scottish or something like that.
Right.
You know?
Yeah,
it's like so. There's
and
so
like
many.
there's no redheads anywhere else in the world, you know. So yeah, so there is and sometimes you fall through the cracks because of, you know, the coloring, or if they already have a lead actress with red hair, you're not going to get cast in one of the
Right, 'cause
secondary
there are
roles.
too many. Yeah, there are too many red-haired people. I was
Yeah.
going to say gingers, but then some people find that word offensive.
Yeah, only a ginger can call another ginger.
Couldn't call another ginger a ginger. Exactly.
That's right.
So I asked this question to everybody. Well, everybody who's an actor that comes on here. And what inspired you to get into acting in the first place?
Yeah, I knew you're going to get to that. So the short answer to the question is I was the third child. So I know
Oh my God, everybody says that.
you have a theory, right? That's either like an only child or a third child. So I had an older brother and an older sister, and they're both really good at math and science. And then 6 years later, I had two younger brothers. But so I guess maybe there's a bit of the falling through the cracks and not being noticed a little bit. But I was in third grade. I was writing, directing, producing, and starring in plays once a week for my class. Yeah, and I remember one of the other girls said, "How come you always get to write them? Why don't why don't I get to write them?" So I sat one out, and I remember the teacher shut down the production because she said it just seemed like they were making it up as they went along. So so it fell back to me. So I was doing that, and then then I would if we had a novel study, I would adapt something, and but I never really considered that I was going to become an actor, even though I was doing that. And don't forget, I was also writing. I was adapting, or I was writing little scripts. And so I think that I was always a storyteller. When I was in,
When did you realize that you had that inclination for writing, like that talent?
I remember something from when I was really, really, really small. And when children are small, you play a game. I call it talk 'em, right? Where you talk toys or whatever, right? And I remember I played a lot by myself, right? Because my older brother and sister very often left me out because I was I was a pain, and my younger brothers were too young. So when I realized one day that my dolls could talk to each other without me actually talking, that the whole scene could go on in my head and my parents wouldn't know what was going on. There was an incredible power to that, right? Now, I don't know if that's an acting thing or if that's a writing thing, but I knew that there's something about making up stories in my head that no one else would know that really appealed to me. And I must have been like 4 or 5 when I had that, 4. So it was preschool. And then and I just I told the story to John Irving in a note because we're talking about books that change you, and I said that reading Antigone is really what changed me. I was very academic in high school, and yeah, everyone assumed I'd go into journalism. I was headed that way, and I read Antigone, and I was blown away. I mean, I couldn't believe it. And I thought, if someone's going to write words like this, and I have to be an actor to bring these words to people. So I went into it with the purest of intent. And I think also perhaps reading that, I was terribly intimidated, because I saw how great writing could be. And I thought, who were you to think that you could ever be a writer? And so I think that my journey from acting into writing, and then really I juggle both, I would say that I had to get the confidence to not just recite other people's words, but the confidence to put my own words out there. So, yeah.
I guess there is that thing about finding the confidence in different ways in both of those, right? Because as an actor, what you're doing is you're revealing yourself in you're kind of showing yourself emoting as another person, right? So you're
Yeah.
kind of you're peeling away a layer of,
Right?
of
I mean,
yourself, right?
yeah.
Whereas in writing, it's kind of like that in slow motion, like word by word.
Mhm.
You're kind of giving away parts of who you are. I mean, you're in neither of them. You're not really showing everyone like this is me. Like you
Yeah.
like when you're crying on set or whatever, like in front of the camera, it's not you. It's like what you would probably look like if it were you crying.
You were in
And
that situation when you were crying. Right. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, the only time someone really reveals exactly who they are is when they're on the Mark Byron Dallas show. And then all the other times they're just pretending.
exactly. Well, we're always pretending, really, aren't we?
Yeah, we know we are always acting, right? I mean, the way I would behave to, my child is going to be different than the way I behave to a colleague, or, or
Yeah.
to, or a lover, or, a friend. I mean, and even in the way we speak, those things all become different. So we are all walking around and being many, many people at
Yeah.
any point in the day, right? I mean, and sometimes we do it so much we lose touch with who we think we are. And I think maybe that's one of the things that's been kind of nice about this isolation, is that because we're not putting on the masks for, people out there, I think that a lot of us have had time to become a bit more introspective and more aware of, who we are and what we want. I think that's, I think that there's a lot of challenges in this, this crazy time. But I also think that there are a lot of positive things, and
Yeah.
I mean, I started last year in April, because it's Poetry Month this April. I started writing a sonnet a day. Every day I wrote a sonnet, and so for about 2 months I put a new sonnet, onto Facebook, or and that
You're
really,
very disciplined, right?
yeah, had to be,
Mm.
I mean, I think that was the way to get through it, and writing sonnet's not like writing a novel, right? It's 14 lines. That's all. So I wasn't asking too much of myself. I was only asking for 14 lines, but within that 14 lines, 10 beats, you're very disciplined, but you also have to be very introspective, or else the poem's no good. So, so when people ask me about writing, and I would say that really what made me a clean writer was my love of sonnets and writing sonnets, yeah, and the discipline of it, right? Because it's so disciplined and specific.
Where do you get your? I mean, with you said with sonnets, you're inspired, but you're being introspective. Where do you get your inspiration for your stories?
And just open up your eyes, it's everywhere. It's like where do you not, right? I mean, I think that a writer can walk down the street and see something exactly the same as somebody else, and the writer will see the meaning in it, and and take it home, right? Or an interconnectedness, right? And so I think it's everywhere. I mean, and it's a funny aside, and I love my sister dearly, but she when she read Two White Queens and One Eyed Jack, she said to me, so you just take a bunch of things you kind of know, you put it all together, and you call it a book, right? And in a sense, I mean, that's kind of funny, but there's some truth in that. There's nothing that I write ever that is 100% of my imagination, right? But
What
very often,
percentage would you say it is? Like what, imagination versus reality? Like what kind of a mix would you say it is? Can you quantify it? I'll put you on the spot there.
yeah, yeah. So I'd say it's like a 30-70. No. Okay. So nothing.
It's a stupid question.
Nothing's a story in the way the story comes out, but the elements are all somehow there, and some of the elements are a combination of things. For instance, the Two White Queens and One Eyed Jack. I have a pair of albino twins. And I lived in Coburg for a while in a big old house, and I had the bottom apartment, and tenants in the top had granddaughters who were albinos, and they weren't twins, and they would come down and have high tea, because they wanted to have high tea and learn manners, and they wanted to play the piano, and so
Oh, so that's
it
where that comes
was
from,
a
right?
little bit of
Okay,
that. But these girls were not. These girls were not twins, right?
right.
Now, my mom and my aunt were identical twins, and when I was in kindergarten, it was a big wake up call to find out that not everybody had two moms who looked exactly the same. I couldn't tell the difference between them. I mean, only their glasses. I mean, honestly, I couldn't. As a child, I couldn't tell the difference between them, and I just thought I had two mothers, and they looked the same. And even all the grandchildren would refer to them as two grandmothers, right? And so there's that element that's in there, the interest of twins, and my mom and my aunt would finish each other's sentences. They would buy there'd be 5,000 possible greeting cards, and they would buy each other the exact same ones, right? I mean, we would joke and say that they only had one soul between the two of them, but there's a certain truth to that, right? There's a certain closeness. And when my mom was sick and dying, my aunt had she'd gone to the doctor. She'd been given a clean bill of health. She's absolutely healthy, and she was fine. And she said in the radio documentary, she said these words: "I can't believe we came into the world together and we're not going out together." That's what she said. My aunt somehow, after a clean bill of health, everything was fine, collapsed on the day that we had a little wake from her mom. She collapsed that day, which bring her to the hospital. They found 5 cancers in her that were like very, very aggressive that they hadn't seen before. And she died within a couple of weeks of my mother, right? And she had the exact same palliative team. And they looked at her and they thought, this is really strange. We just saw this woman die because she looked exactly the same as my mom, all through their lives. They were like, carbon copies.
Wow.
And so there's something, to that, yeah.
So there's some kind of connection going on. I mean, I've heard about and read about things about this because, of course, when you've got identical twins, they are, I mean, more or less identical to look at, but also they have the same DNA.
But
But
the same DNA. If identical twins they both have children, right? Let's say they have children to brothers. Those children, in terms of their makeup, are the same as siblings. They're not like cousins.
yeah, exactly.
Right? So
It's weird. I never really thought about that, but yeah.
yeah.
So
So in Two White Queens and the One Eyed Jack, so I have these twins, and I work really hard in finding the things that are different about them, right? Because there are things that are different about my mom and my aunt. But I also overlay the the albino thing. And then someone could say to me, well, what do you really know about albinos? Because I had these 2 girls in my life for about a year. But there are things that are similar in the red-haired person's makeup to the albinos, in that we both have to have 2 recessive genes in order to have our color, right? I mean, with an
Right.
albino, they have to carry that recessive gene on both sides, or else it doesn't happen. It's the same thing with with redheads. And then there are other things too. There's the who's the kid who's swimming in the t-shirt because she's going to burn. So there's the relationship with the sun. All of those things are things that I could relate to. Only that they're that much more of a danger for someone who's born with albinism. So, and then the other thing I want to do is that in the so in all the there's so many films where you see albinos and they're always evil. Like film after film. I don't understand that. So I wanted to make characters who were intrinsically heroic. I mean, those girls are really they're really heroic, and they're and I love them. They are they are full-bodied real girls with the same sort of dreams and desires that any girl would have, but with the prejudice against them that they have to overcome in their lives, right? So
And this is the thing that you touch on here with the albino people that have, I guess, to be PC, I should say, people with albinism. Because if I say albino people, it sounds like they've come from a country called Albino.
albino, yeah.
But
Exactly. Yeah.
the one thing about them that you say is that there are in places there are cultural stigmas against them. Like, for example, there are some countries in Africa, or at least one country in Africa, where
Yes,
they're hunted down. People are hunted down because they have albinism, and like they if they catch them, they will basically kill them and chop up
it's really
parts
funny
of them
that,
to sell.
I'm writing the next book,
Magic.
right? Because I want to do a trilogy. I want to do like the
Okay.
White Queen's trilogy, and we do. And I'm not going to give too much away. I'm not going to give anything about the first book, but I will just give a little, little thing. So the twins go to South Africa for a celebration of Mandela becoming president, and one of them is abducted in a washroom, and we don't see her again, and we have no idea. And so my next book really deals with what do you do when a family member's gone missing and you don't know if they're dead or alive, and how does that what's going on. But it is in Africa, so there's a lot of worry because so they think that the body parts of an albino or someone with albinism have some magical quality, and that there's no soul in the being with albinism. And so the idea is, if someone, let's say someone's going blind, for instance, then if they can kidnap a child or a woman, even a man with albinism, and remove the eye and make a potion, then that's going to help that other person, see better. But there's also a lot of politicians will also have, body parts that they use in order to, gain power. So, in Toronto, there is a group of people called Under the Same Sun who are really, they're amazing. They save, people who have been injured. They are educating people, and and they've really made a huge difference, in this genocide against, albinos. Yeah. So, but it's a tricky one. My daughter's boyfriend is from Africa, and he has he said it's terrible that if baby's born with albinism, the parents worry that they worry the whole time that the baby will be taken away, right? So,
Well, A. McKay says she's looking forward to reading your next book,
yay!
and I can say that I've had a sneak preview of that because you very kindly dropped this round to me. And what I've noticed is that, in a lot of your work, because I know we were chatting about this like some time ago when you were talking that you're working on a TV play, or I can't remember if it was a play or
pilot,
one
it's called
set
Digging.
in Nova Scotia. And what I was going to ask you was about how you interweave. Like, there's a lot of stuff that is like you love to bring in, and this is fascinating to me, that you bring in dialect, you bring in other languages, and giving the feel of different ways of speaking the language. So this is a part of your thing, your style, right?
I guess so. I don't know. I mean, I think that maybe being an actor who writes, it does change things a bit. I think that it gives you an ear for dialogues so that your characters don't all sound the same when you write them. But the thing that fascinates me is that, well, okay, so with Two White Queens, for instance, we've got some German characters. And, of course, I have a German father, so, I had an ear for that. And I have a little bit of the language. So you would say, let's say you would say to someone, would you like a cup of tea? Or do you fancy a cup of tea? Can I get you a cup of tea? Would you like to stay for a cup of tea? Any of those things. But if you were German, then translated it would be, you will have tea. Yes. So that changes how a person is perceived, or that changes, the quality of a person. So Hilda and Siegfried in my book, they may seem rather blunt at times, but it's linguistic. It's really right there in the language, I mean, in the same way that people talk about the Irish, and spinning a yarn or whatever, right? And they go on and on and on. It's in the language. It's in in the culture. And so if you don't really take a close look at that, then I think that you're missing something in your writing. So Digby-Neck is interesting. We did reading of that a year ago, and right before lockdown. And I said to one of the actors, Aidan Devine, who's a fabulous actor, I said to him, because he was worried about the dialect, and I said to him, try to think of Appalachian meets West Country, right? I mean, so that's a strange combination, right? And and the thing about the neck, that part of Nova Scotia, is that I think that 75% of the boys never leave the neck, right? And I think that there's 45 or 50% of the girls do. So you've got people who stay on the neck generation after generation, and so they do sound different than other parts of Nova Scotia. And Nova Scotia is a small province, so Aidan Devine, without ever hearing anyone on the neck, did a combination of Appalachian and West Country, and he nailed it. Like he nailed it. I thought I was back on the neck, right? Now I spent some time on the neck, so I could hear them, and I tried to get the rhythm of the way they spoke into the dialogue, right? And I think you could say the same thing with two white queens, that the rhythm of the Germans and the rhythm of Esther, who's Hungarian and Jewish. I think you see a rhythm in how they speak, and I think that that's very important, because I think that that rhythm is part of their character, how they hold themselves, how they relate to the world, and so I think it's very important.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, you hit nail on the head there, because rhythm is, like you say, it's so important, and it's integral to the character of,
Yeah.
well, of anybody. I mean, I've got one of my clients is he's a native Spanish speaker, and that's one of the things that I'm working on right now is his rhythm. I mean, his pronunciation is really good. He's an advanced speaker, but when it comes to rhythm, it just sounds, because Spanish is such a different, because it's a syllable timed language as opposed to
Yeah,
English, which is
yeah.
stress timed, and also the other thing that you mentioned, the pragmatics of a language.
Right.
That's fascinating. Like the idea that, like you said, people that are not of the Anglo culture can come across as abrupt. And I remember a Brazilian student of mine in a class years ago saying, "Teacher, come here." And I remember thinking how direct and abrupt that is. It just sounds so rude, but
That was
I
probably
understood.
direct. Yeah, that's
You
direct.
have to ask.
Right?
Yeah,
Well,
I had to explain to him that he had to ask it as a question.
Yeah.
Teacher, excuse me, could you come here? Like, English has evolved in such a way that we're so kind of indirect, and then other languages are like, "Hey, come here," and it's not rude. It's
Exactly.
a fascinating study.
Exactly. I remember being a kid, my cousin visiting from Germany, and we were about the same age, a little bit younger. And I tried, and I changed each word directly. So I want to say, "Do you want to go for a walk?" Magst du gehen mit mir? And she looked at me like I was crazy, because they would never say that. They would say, "We go for a walk." Yes, we're walking now. Yes, and I was going,
Yeah,
"Would
it's so much
you
simpler.
like
Yeah.
to go for a walk with me, please?" Was just not. It just wasn't the way things were expressed, right? So people who read early drafts of my book said that the Germans were kind of wacky, right? And so I had my cousin look at the book, and I said to her, "So what do you think of the Germans?" Because she's in Germany, and she went, "Yeah." And I said, "Well, do you think they're wacky?" She went, "No, they're German." you know so we can perceive a culture differently, because linguistically they're different than we are, but they're not. They're still saying the same thing in a different way, but the perception is completely different. And so that's one of the things that does interest me in my writing. And yeah, but when we talk about rhythm, right, and approaching a different accent when you're acting, I have actually always gone for the rhythm first, and then the pronunciation, not the other way around. I go for the musicality,
Mm.
how it sounds in terms of if it were a song or something, and then after the musicality, then I go in specifically, for the vowels, and the different pronunciations.
Yeah.
But I
Well,
try
that makes
to,
total sense,
yeah.
because what often happens is that
If you said, "Oh no, Heidi, I'm a professional. You've done it completely wrong. You're
everybody does everything differently, and the way I do things is the way the actor wants to do it. But I mean, I can advise them against certain things and persuade them by showing them how it would work better another way. But everybody does things differently. But the way that you explains it, what dialect am I speaking
who
now?
explains it, Heidi."
The
Yeah,
way I explains it is that. See, I don't know. I lived in Bristol for 5 years, so I mean, maybe that's what's coming out now. It's like a Bristol Tourette's. So
yeah,
way I
yeah.
explains it.
Crystal Tourette's. That's
But
gonna be that's the
so,
name of the novel.
but it makes perfect sense, because, like, when it comes to rhythm, the rhythm is more of an umbrella thing, right? You've got your first of all, like you've got your setting, and you've got your tongue placement, but you've got your the vocal posture, if you like. Like,
Mhm.
is the resonation down here? Is the resonation at the front for the nose?
Right.
It's So there's that, which kind of like goes over the whole thing. But then you've got your intonation, your stress patterns,
Yes.
and you've got your stress in the words and so on, which dictates the rhythm. And then it like comes down to the actual vowels and consonants after that. So it's like, yeah, it kind of, you can go from different directions, but it does make sense to go from the rhythm of it, especially if that rhythm is very different from your
Right.
own.
Yeah. And you get that. I think you get that a lot with certain languages. I mean, certainly there's a different rhythm to Irish, and there's a different rhythm to German and to Russian. And those are the ones that I've had to deal with the most. So yeah.
Excellent. Now, a couple of people have written in here, said, well done, Heidi. The new book sounds great.
Yay.
It does look great. I've read 2 or 3 chapters. I'm into
Oh,
the
wow.
3rd chapter right now.
Yeah.
So it is great. It's hard to put down, but I have other things I got to do. So I'm reading it each night now, and it's it is fascinating. Also, John Rankin. I don't know if it's Rankin. I think it's Rankin.
Yeah, Ozarks.
Yeah. All the way over in the Ozarks, and I think they talk funny down there, don't they?
Well, he's a Toronto boy who moved there, so he doesn't talk funny.
Yeah, I was being facetious.
He's a great artist too. He's a great artist. Just putting that out there.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much for talking to me.
Thank you.
For an hour about all the stuff that you've done and about your new book. So, one last plug here. This is Two White Queens and the One-Eyed Jack by Heidi. And this way. No, this way. She wrote it. I'm a consummate professional. And it's an awesome book. So you should. When is it coming out on the shelves?
Well, the interesting thing is that some bookstores are already shipping them. So I think Indigo and Book City and Another Story are all shipping them, but Amazon isn't shipping them until the 9th of February. That's the day it's coming out, the 9th. And in the US, it comes out on the 6th of March, the US and the UK. So
great. So people should get their orders in.
Yes, get your orders in now, because the sooner I get through the first run, then we can get John Irving's quote on the second run, because I didn't get his quote till after it went to print. So,
it's a sticker
and
right
then
now.
with John Irving's quote, you're going to have to buy a second book.
And on the back, it's got a quote from Jeremy Irons, who says, I loved it. Sorry, I loved it. It captured me. Oh, no, it captured me. See, this is all about the rhythm and stress now, isn't it? I should put my glasses on.
Yeah.
There you go. I loved it. It captured me and I could not put it down. You acted with Jeremy, didn't you?
Yes, I did, in Dead Ringers, yeah.
Ah, awesome. Well,
so here's the thing, right? So my book will only have endorsements maybe on the back with people whose initials are J.I.
Oh. Well, is it also available in hardback? Is it going to be in hardback? Or?
No, they just do perfect bound, beautiful soft cover now, and that's just kind of the way that the publishing world's gone. So I don't know. There's something nice about having it in hardback, right? I mean, they should just print one for me so I can have it on my shelf.
Yeah, like encrusted in gold, like like gold edged pages.
Yeah, nice
special one for you.
Leather bound, actually, leather bound.
A leather bound in human skin.
No, not even chicken skin.
Well, thank you so much for coming on. I am honored to have you here to tell us all about you and the stuff that you've done. Before we finish, can you tell us about any other things that you're working on? Right, I mean, you told us a little bit about novel that you're working on. You hinted at that, but what about acting stuff? Because you're there. I understand there's a couple of things that are in post production. I don't know if they're kind of under wraps. You can't talk about.
Bordello's in post production right now. I know that the writer has done a sequel, so it's a good thing that the producer and director decided that I shouldn't die in the first one, which I was supposed to, so that I.
Oh, that's a nice.
Yeah,
touch.
so good. That was really good. And I was supposed to do a movie in Latvia. It got canceled in November. We were going to shoot December and January. It got canceled, so we're hoping that it goes. We're hoping it goes next autumn. And that's kind of, it's a really art film, One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest kind of thing, and
Cool.
it's very cool. So so fingers crossed that that the industry is fully back, and that that it goes.
Yeah, great. So Heidi, thank you so much, and I wish you well in all your endeavors, and stay in touch. I'll speak to you soon. Okay, thanks everybody for watching.
Thank you.
I'll be back. I'll be back next week to talk to another amazing guest. Bye, everyone.